Добрий вечір. Всіх вітаю. Мене звати Ступицька Надія, і я дуже рада вас вітати на нашому сьогоднішньому вебінарі. Ам, Напишіть мені, будь ласка, чи мене чути, чи все видно. Мгм. Поки ми очікуємо на приєднання більшості, я б хотіла дізнатися, звідки ви, ам, де і ким ви працюєте, чи готуєте студентів до НМТ, чи тільки збираєтеся, і наскільки корисною вважаєте сьогоднішню тему? І що для вас little time left? Так, добре, бачу. Hello, Київ, Одеса, супер. Мгм. Поділіться, будь ласка, своїм досвідом. Чи ви працюєте в групах, чи ви працюєте індивідуально? Мгм. Тож, про що ми сьогодні говоритимемо? Цей вебінар відбувається завдяки платформі TalkEn.Cloud, тому я трошечки розповім вам про те, що таке TalkEn.Cloud, чим може бути корисна ця платформа для викладачів англійської мови. І далі ми перейдемо з вами безпосередньо до нашої теми сьогоднішнього вебінару «Експрес-підготовка до НМТ». Що робити, коли залишилось дуже мало часу? Отже, давайте розпочинати. То що ж таке TalkEn.Cloud? Це all-inclusive для викладання англійської мови. І як це може бути вам корисно? Що з собою уявляє TalkEn.Cloud платформа? Перш за все, це бібліотека інтерактивних підручників. Також це система менеджменту навчального процесу, а також це окрема академія розвитку мовних школ, тобто 3 в одному на одній платформі. Отже, що таке бібліотека інтерактивних підручників? На платформі представлено 50 інтерактивних цифрових підручників для рівнів від початкового до C1. І ці інтерактивні підручники поділені на категорії для школярів та для дорослих. Також на цій платформі ви можете знайти Teacher's Guide, тобто деталізовані плани занять до кожного підручника. Це дійсно деталізовані плани до кожного заняття, де ви можете побачити, як розпочати урок, як зацікавити студентів, про що можна поговорити. Поступово викладається матеріал від контрольованої практики до вільної практики. Все, що можна використати на уроці, і для цього не треба використовувати різні джерела, онлайн-ресурси і так далі. Все є в одному місці. Також на платформі представлений трекінг прогресу учнів у виконанні завдань в підручниках. Тобто ви можете відслідковувати, наскільки студенти виконують завдання, чи виконують взагалі, як якісно вони виконують, тобто скільки завдань було виконано, скільки з них було виконано вірно. І також це може бути дуже корисним, якщо ви хочете надати якийсь певний фідбек на уроці, додатково щось пропрацювати, або якщо ви готуєтесь до тестів, підсумків семестру і хочете зрозуміти, в чому у ваших студентів є найбільша кількість проблемних моментів. Також система тестів представлена на платформі з автоматизованою перевіркою. Тобто викладач нічого не має перевіряти власноруч, все робиться системно. Але, звичайно, що викладач має доступ до кожного тесту, може подивитися, які були помилки, і також надати після тесту певний фідбек. Також є placement тест. Це тест, який допоможе викладачу зрозуміти, який рівень у студента або в яку групу краще додати. Тобто все для зручності викладача. Також на платформі ви можете знайти бібліотеку інтерактивних воркшітів на різні тематики, на всі випадки в житті. Вони можуть стосуватися певних івентів, якихось holidays або просто трендів. Також ви можете створювати свої власні воркшопи на цій платформі. Тому дуже корисна бібліотека. Також це система менеджменту навчального процесу, як я вже сказала, і що я маю під цим на увазі. Викладач може створити профіль студента. Також він може об'єднувати студентів або в групи, або призначати індивідуальні заняття. Також є можливість генерації розкладу уроків, і викладач може безпосередньо бачити цей розклад у своєму профілі. А також там відображається електронний журнал, де ви можете побачити відвідуваність студентами занять, їх досягнення у вигляді результатів тестів і так далі. Крім того, на платформі одразу є домашні завдання та можливий зворотній зв'язок від учителя учням. Ця платформа буде корисною, якщо ви тільки хочете перейти на онлайн повністю. Також завдяки цій платформі ви можете відслідковувати прогрес виконання завдань з інтерактивних підручників, про які я говорила раніше, а також перевіряти тести. Тобто система перевіряє, ви дивитесь на результати. Отже, це така платформа, яка може бути дійсно корисною. Також на платформі є, власне, Академія розвитку мовних шкіл. І от, наприклад, ми сьогодні з вами зустрілися на цьому вебінарі завдяки цій платформі. Тому користуйтеся, пробуйте, якщо цікаво. Отже, давайте перейдемо до нашої сьогоднішньої теми. And what is our topic? NMT Express preparation. What to do when there is little time left. Отже, скажіть мені, будь ласка, напишіть в коментарях, що для вас little time left. So, it might be 1 month before the test or 1 week before the test, because every person might identify it differently. So what do you understand by this little time left? All right. So, as for the information that we need to check from our students, there are some things that are really important to check that our students know, and this is information about the procedure and the format of NMT test. So I would ask you to evaluate how do you feel about your groups, your students, how aware are they about the procedure and the format of NMT test in English. Please put numbers from 1 to 5 in the chat, where 1 is not that aware of what is NMT, how it is conducted, and what is the procedure, what will happen to them during this test. And 5 means they know everything and you are sure in this. Okay, while you are writing, hey, 5. So your students are really lucky if they really know everything about NMT in English. All right. Okay. Anyway, it will be a good idea if you ask your students some information about NMT test in English. So I have a task for you. You're going to see several questions about NMT in English. So the questions are not difficult, and I hope you know all the answers. But let's check. So again, you need to write the short answer in the chat. So question number 1, how much time do test takers have to complete the English part of NMT? So maybe it is 1 hour, maybe half an hour, maybe 4 hours, maybe there is no time limit. How much time do they have for English part? Okay, I can see 160. Okay, probably 1 hour or 60 minutes, you mean? All right. Okay. So we will check your answers a little bit later. What about the 2 parts of NMT in English? What are the 2 parts of English NMT test? All right. I see you answering. So I move on. How many reading tasks are there in the test, and how many use of English tasks? How many reading tasks and how many use of English tasks? The next question, what type of tasks is not represented in NMT? 1, sentence completion. 2, open-ended question. And 3, multiple choice. All right. So in question number 4, you just write 1, 2, 3, or you can write the type of a task, sentence completion, open-ended question, multiple choice. And the last question, how many questions are there in total? How many questions are there in NMT part? Okay. So thank you for your answers, and it's time to check. It is time to check. So Students or test takers have about 1 hour for English part of NMT. Why do I mention about 1 hour? Because in total, NMT consists of 2 parts. Each part lasts for 2 hours, like about 1 hour for one subject. And the first part lasts for 2 hours. It means students complete two parts of NMT, 2 subjects. Then they have a break, and then they complete the second part. So within this second part, yeah, that is 2 hours, students might identify themselves how much time to spend on one subject or another. But recommended amount of time is about 1 hour per subject. So I saw that most of you were right. Great. And then about 2 parts of English NMT, they are reading and use of English. You were exactly right. Then how many reading tasks? There are 4 reading tasks, and there are 2 use of English tasks. Amazing answers, everyone. And yes, most of you were right. Open-ended questions are not presented in NMT. Hopefully, probably. Then, how many questions are there in total? 32. It is a good idea to complete a kind of a short test where you check how aware your students are about the format and the procedure of NMT. It might sound not very important, but only for the teacher who is not taking this test. As for students, there are some reasons why it is important to mention or to revise or to repeat once again to your students the procedure and how everything is going to be. So why do you need this? Why do your students need to know? The first reason is because it reduces anxiety. So when you know what to expect, when you know what and how to do, it reduces pressure from you or from your students in this case, and fear as well. Then it improves time management, or it's better to say action management, yeah, because we cannot manage time. It just flows. And as for our actions, students can manage their actions when they know the number of questions, when they know the number of tasks, how many tasks for reading, how many tasks for use of English. They can more or less identify how much time particularly they need for reading tasks and how much time they need to complete use of English. Maybe they are stronger in reading, so they don't need to spend too much time on this, and they need to move immediately to use of English, or vice versa. They are weak about reading comprehension. They usually stuck at this type of tasks, and they are better in use of English. So they will balance these activities, these tasks. Then reason number 3, it gives you and your students focus while preparation to this test. So you do not spend time on topics that are not relevant and do not appear in the test. You do not spend time on developing some extra skills like writing, speaking. I mean extra in terms of speaking about NMT test, not in general. And also you focus on the tasks formats that are relevant to the test. So avoiding extra information, because students will face a lot of information connected to English language itself. They don't need some extra actions here. And of course, knowledge and awareness of the test boosts confidence. And people feel more confident and secure in the familiar situations. So just imagine yourself taking a test. Imagine someone tells you that you're going to pass a test, you have 1 hour, and if you have no information or there is not enough information, you might feel not very confident because you do not know what to expect, you do not know how to act, so you can't be confident enough in this situation. When you know what to expect, when the situation, the format is familiar to you, you feel more confident in yourself, in your knowledge, in your actions, and it partially reduces stress. So I hope I convinced you in this moment that knowledge of these procedures is really important for test takers. So let's move on, and we are going to speak about the second thing that is important to pay attention to during your lessons. What should you revise with your students? They are strategies. Yeah, so please share in the chat whether you discussed some strategies, how to complete particular activities, particular tasks of NMT. So write yes if you told your students about strategies, and no if you didn't. Also, if you explained your students the strategies, how complete particular activities, whether your students use these strategies or not. Do they really use your strategies? If you have your own strategies, you can also share. So it will be interesting to read if you use strategies, what strategies you use, whether you think they are helpful or not. So we are going to revise different strategies for each type of tasks in NMT. So let's move on to the reading part. As we mentioned, there are 4 different tasks in NMT that are that fall into category reading. All right, so let's look at task number 1. And task number 1 in reading comprehension, in reading part, is matching pictures. So usually students are asked to read the text, to match choices. There are several pictures, and they need to match the picture, which is usually advertisement, with the concept. Yeah, what are they about? What are these advertisements about? They are usually about some locations, for example, hotels, some places of interest, and whatever. So what to pay attention while completing this format of task? You can look at my screen and you will see some underlined words, some arrows to help you concentrate on some basic information. So here, it's important to search for synonyms, for antonyms, and for paraphrasing. So I guess you mentioned this to your students that usually there are no same words in the options and in the task itself. Let's say you have an advertisement about health spa, so they will never mention this word in the text, yeah, in the picture. So there should be some words related to the topic. So ask students to focus on topic-related vocabulary that might help them identify the topic. Then look at these pictures. How helpful are they? Sometimes pictures might be really helpful to students to complete particular activities, but sometimes they are just distractors. If you look at picture 1 here in the task, do you really think it looks like a restaurant? Or it might be some kind of a fruit farm or a bookshop. So it's not very clear from the picture. So often pictures are distractors. Then in the text, in the pictures, you can often find false friends. Here in picture number 4, you can see some underlined word, artist. So this word might be tricky for your students and they might get confused if they do not know the translation of this word, because we have the similar sounding words in our language. Yeah, so this might be really confusing. So make sure your students are aware of false friends. So words that might sound really familiar but might have different meaning from the one that we have in our native language. And let's move on to task number 2 here. So task number 2 is multiple choice. So students are usually asked to read the text and to choose the correct answer. What is important here to pay attention to? Why am I mentioning? It's very important to tell this information to your students, because we might think it's quite obvious, but students might not think the same way, because they might be really overwhelmed with the task, with the new words that they can see in the text, and they really get stressed out. So what is specific about this type of task is that questions that appear in the test are usually in the same order as information appears in the text. So for example, you can see question number 6. So usually it relates to paragraph number 1, and then it follows, like paragraph 1, paragraph 2, or they might skip some paragraphs, but the ordering is the same. So they do not mix up the sequence of events from the text. Then what is very important in this type of tasks, ask your students to look at the question before searching for the task, for the answer, for the text. Why? Because when they look at the question before reading, they can pick up the keywords and they might know what to focus on during reading. Yeah. So this is really important. Why else it is important to attentively look at the questions is because they need to spot whether there are some really tricky words like not. Yeah, so in number 9 here, you can see which of the following was not mentioned about application. So often students are not very attentive, and this can cause the mistake in the test. So make sure that your students are aware of these words, that they do pay attention to these questions and specific words. One of the strategies here is eliminating options one by one. So they might eliminate them because one option like was not mentioned at all. The second might be mentioned, but with some difference, and so on. What is important here is make students provide explanation. Why this? Why not that? So ask them to search for proofs, for evidence in the text. Then one more strategy that might be helpful is when you ask your students to read the question, and to close the options. So ask them to read the question and to find the information in the text. Then ask to answer the question in their own words. Then open the options and search for the option that is almost the same or the same as your students have, in their own words. So these are the main strategies that are really working, and you might teach your students if you didn't. Maybe you have tried some of them. Maybe you never used like the last strategy, or you used all of them. Also, your students might have their own strategies that works perfectly for them. It's also task number 3 here in reading part is matching features. So again, there is one specific object. In our case, it is library. And students need to search for a particular library that has some specific features, like gives you a chance to enjoy listening to music, or provides its materials to other libraries if necessary, or has been a filming location more than once, and so on. What is important here? Again, we are searching for synonyms, antonyms, and paraphrasing. So let's look at the options. For example, option D, that is the answer to question 11. So provides its materials to other libraries if necessary. If you look at what I underlined, the evidence that I underlined in question 11 in the text itself, you can see that they do not use the same words. So they use, for example, certain items instead of materials. They do not say provide. Yeah, they use some other words that mean the same. And for example, in question number 12, you can see that the answer is G. And in the option, it is mentioned has been a filming location more than once. And here in the text itself, you cannot see, for example, film, but there is a synonym, movie, and they are different titles of the movies, yes, more than one. So this is what your students need to be aware of. So they should look at the options, identify keywords, then find synonyms or sometimes antonyms or paraphrasing in the text itself. Also, you might, what might be helpful, draw students' attention to what what is it? What is Oxford University's library? Why is it written in a different way? Yeah, like it is written in bold or italics. So why? What is it? What does it mean? Then let's move on to task number 4. So sentence completion. This is the type of a task where students need to choose one of the options that best fits each space. And of course, there are some options that students do not need to use. So what is important in completing this type of task? First of all, it is general text understanding. So how to make students get used to analyzing the text, understanding the text. Ask them a question every time you have this type of task. What is the text about? Summarize it in one sentence. So it will help them starting analyzing the text. They already might have some ideas what to expect from the text. What might it be about? Again, here you can ask students to look through the text, skipping the gaps. They might say blah blah blah, or just ignore these gaps, yeah, and just to get familiar with the topic, with what is the text about. Then often students have problems with with this type of task, and what might be helpful here is translation. So they need to understand the meaning of this sentence, and sometimes students need to not only to read what precedes the gap, what follows the gap. Sometimes they need to look through the whole paragraph or even the whole text, because sometimes some options might seem appropriate for several gaps, and some options might be only okay for one gap specifically. So when they when they look through the whole text, they more or less understand what should be used where. Then noun-verb correlation is important here, and also in this type of tasks, you might ask your students to close the relative clause, yeah, because it's often a distraction here. So students get lost because they have some extra information in the middle of the long sentence. So they get confused what the gap is relevant to, like what does it mean or what does it refer to. So this is really important if you see your students have problems with sequencing, yeah, with identifying what the text is about. Ask them to close the relative clause, yeah. So some extra information. So this is the main strategy working with this type of task. While I'm moving to the use of English part, I would ask you to share whether you used all of these strategies, whether any of these strategies is new to you, and so on. Okay. So let's move on. So use of English. What is interesting about use of English? As we discussed, there are only 10 questions that refer to this category. So what are they? 5 questions refer to vocabulary and 5 questions refer to grammar. Does it mean we do not need to teach our students vocabulary? Of course not. We need to. Does it mean that grammar is not that essential? Of course not. We need to teach it. But what do we need to do? We need to use context. We need to use the text as the base, yeah, for analysis. We provide grammar through the text. Yeah, so it would be wonderful if your students can analyze the text. So while preparing for the NMT, there are 2 important things. Teach your students to work with the text, critical thinking and analysis, and knowledge. Yeah, of course, knowledge of English. I mean vocabulary or grammar. So task number 5 in NMT of English is vocabulary. And what is here? Students need to read the text and choose the correct answer for each gap. So what is usually given here? They are usually frequently confused words, synonyms, or kind of synonyms, and different collocations. So when your students read the text, ask them to check whether it is some kind of collocation. Of course, while working with the text, make sure you analyze, you discuss with your students what is the difference. Yes, why can we use, for example, design here? Why can't we use fashion? The words are refer to the same topic, but they are used in different contexts. So this is what should be discussed. And the grammar part, also not that many questions, only 5. Here, of course, there are some highly frequently, okay, just a second. So there are some grammar topics of high frequency, and I mentioned them during the previous webinar. So if you skipped it, if you missed it, you might check there. What is here? Ask students to guess part of speech. So again, you can see here relative clauses. Also, you might ask students to close them. Again, to look what precedes the gap, what follows the gap. It's always a hint. Yeah, for example, the preposition or some form of a word or a verb that might be really helpful in identifying the part of speech or the structure or the exact word that should be used. And of course, analyzing the context in general. Let's move on. So share, please, what part is more complicated for your students, reading or use of English? And what requires more attention from teacher? What requires more preparation and practice? Let's move on. And we are going to speak about timed practice and mock tests. This is also something that you need to focus on when you have time limits. Yeah, like let's say 1 month or less, or maybe a little bit more than 1 month before the test. So before we start, please identify, share, what does it mean timed practice? What does it mean mock test? What is the difference between them? Have you ever used any of these things? Okay, timed practice, mock test, are they the same? Is there any difference? Whether we should use mock tests from the very beginning, or do we need to use timed practice only before the test itself? What does it mean, timed practice? If you have any ideas, please share. All right. Firstly, let us speak about timed practice. So what is it? In comparison with mock tests, it is a shorter, focused practice session where students complete specific tasks. For example, it might be answering reading questions, or maybe practicing some specific grammar topic or vocabulary topic or whatever within a set time limit. So the teacher set the time, and within this time, students have to complete the activity. So it is not the full-time test. The aim of it is to improve speed of your students and also to improve accuracy. For example, there are some students that can complete the tasks really quickly, but there are also some students that might spend hours or too much time on one activity, and then they get stuck and they can't move on. So this is very useful activity to be done with your students. There are some specific features of timed practice. Yeah, if we compare timed practice and mock tests. So length, it is a rather short task. Yeah, so we have some focus. It might be one activity. Yeah, it might be 3 activity in a row, but they are aimed at the same topic. Then content. So content is one skill or one topic. If we speak about skills, it might be skimming, scanning. Students need to complete the reading task, reading comprehension task, or they need to complete use of English task, or they need to work with the topic, vocabulary topic traveling, and there are some activities on this topic. Then time limit. This kind of practice is rather flexible. You can adapt it according to the needs of your lesson, according to the needs of your students. So it might be 1 activity, it might be 2 activities, it might be 3 activities, depending on your aim. And scoring. Yeah, you might score students' works, students' performance, or you might not. So it's not the aim, let's say. Yeah. So we do not aim here to evaluate students that much. We try to improve their speed, how quickly they complete something. And frequency, it can be done rather frequently. It can be done every lesson, or it can be done twice a week, once a week, depending on your plan, depending on what are the students' needs. When we speak about use of timed practice, where should we do it? It can be done throughout the study period, so from the very beginning to the end of this period. Then when you want to specifically work on a particular topic or skill, and when students need more structured practice without taking a full test. So this is the moments when you need to use timed practice. Then what about mock test? What about mock test? It is a full simulation, yeah, of a real exam. So what is important here is that we try to make our students feel the real test, how it will be in the real life. So we try to keep the same conditions that they will have in their real NMT test. If it's online, it would be nice if students try this online. Yeah. Also, it might be nice if students have an opportunity to complete the mock test, like the full mock test with all the subjects in one test, but probably it's not always possible. And there should be the timing that is the same as in real tests, the structure that is the same, and of course, the scoring criteria are the same. So what are the features of the mock test? It is full length. Yeah, so if real test lasts for 1 hour, then your mock test during the lesson should also be 1 hour. If it's not partial simulation, of course, you might have a mock test like only reading part or only use of English part. Then it's a little bit different, yeah, but still kind of a mock test. Then what about the content? So it fully imitates the real sections of a real test. Then content. time limits, the same as in the test, scoring, the same as in the test, and frequency. I won't say that there is a need to complete mock tests like regularly, every lesson or every second lesson. It might be done from time to time in order to spot the progress, to see difficulties that are still present, or the ones that are already solved. When we speak about the usage of mock tests, of course, it should be done near to the exam date to check how ready your students are. And also it provides you information on what should be done more, what are some weaknesses that should be treated. Then, when student needs to experience full test conditions, there are different students, and some of them really need this to feel this procedure, to feel these conditions of a real test, a real exam. Then they will feel more confident during the test itself. Then, when you need to evaluate strengths and weaknesses of your students. So you mentioned that you think 1 month is little time. Yeah. So when you need express preparation for NMT, so probably months before the test is a good idea to have a mock test in order to identify weaknesses so that you can focus on them and work more and more to solve these particular problems. Then let's move on, and the next stop is targeted revision. So there are some steps to be done, to be taken in order to provide effective targeted revision. Firstly, it is our test. It might be a mock test, or it might be timed practice, depending on your needs. So you have to complete the test, your students, and you as a teacher need to evaluate what should you work on. Probably if you work with a group, it's difficult to cover everything because of time limits, but you can analyze what are the general problems, what are the typical problems of your students, and prepare materials for this particular topic. So you need to analyze the test, the results of your students, and create the plan of work. For example, 1 week to cover grammar topics, then 1 week to cover vocabulary topics, 1 week to work on strategies in detail, yet to revise, to make students use them, to maybe to complete the tasks together in order to analyze together, and then provide this revision, yeah, in different formats. It might be, for example, test, teach, test approach, yes, framework of a lesson, and some other ways that are appropriate to your group. Then provide 1 more test in order to analyze how effective your revision was. Provide feedback on students' mistakes, maybe with following tips, with following recommendations for your students to improve if there is such a need. So these are very important steps, and they should all be there. Do not skip any of the stages. So let's continue, and I have some revision tips to share. What is important? It is important to test students' knowledge by recalling information from memory. It's not only about tests. It might be during every lesson. What do I mean? For example, you worked with the text, you worked with some words. So let's say you worked with the text, you completed some activities to check reading comprehension. You might create some kind of activity that is not really time consuming, but you might ask students to find some synonyms in the text to a particular word. So, for example, there is a synonym to the word find, yeah, so or search for something, so find it in the text. So in this way you make your students recall information from their memory. Or for example, you worked with the text and there are different tenses there, so you might ask students what tense is this, and you can ask why do we use this tense here. So in this way they need to recall the grammar rules. So the text here is not only for completing the task, yeah, like the task itself, but also as source of extra activities that you can create on the spot. And then use past exam papers. So if it's possible, do store them, yeah, keep them, do not delete them, or do not throw them away, because you might see what should be worked on, or whether something was solved. So if you see there were some difficulties at the beginning, you might once go back to this specific situation. Yeah, you might work on it once again, or you might also ask students to complete the same test that they had at the beginning of studying. So this will show if anything changed in their progress. Then the next thing is practicing questions, so or practicing tasks. It would be a good idea if you do not only focus on one topic, but if you mix different topics to make it more challenging. For example, if you have 1 month left, or let's say 1 week left, you do not need to revise separately present simple tense or past simple tense. What can you do? You can combine and provide some revision for several tenses in one lesson. Let's say all present tenses, or all past tenses, or all future tenses, or all conditionals, all conditional types, and so on. Then the next tip is prioritize active rather than just read. Active revision, yeah, active recalling rather than just reading notes or watching tutorials. So what do our students sometimes feel? They might feel that they know the words because they can like they might have it in their passive memory. Yeah, they do not use this word, but they do identify the meaning of this word in the text, or because of the context. The context can sometimes be helpful. So try to make your students actively use the vocabulary, the grammar, not just reading passively. Then, of course, start revision in advance. If you have 1 month left, okay, that's enough time to start preparation. Do not wait till the last moment. Last week, it's not the best time to start revision, because the students will be stressed out, the teacher will be stressed out, and yeah, it never works, unfortunately. So some typical topics. Especially when we speak about use of English, there are some specific topics that are worth revising when you have not enough time. Why? Sometimes students might not know all the words in the text. Is it okay? For sure it is. And what might help them to complete the task to complete the question successfully is, for example, word formation. So they might analyze the text, they might analyze the gap and identify, okay, here I need the noun. If they know how noun is formed, they will choose the correct word because they know the suffix that is used for noun formation, or they know the prefix that forms this specific meaning, a negative one, or when you read, like do something repeatedly, and so on. So such topics to revise when you have lack of time is collocations, dependent prepositions, word formation, frequently confused words, false friends, and phrasal verbs. I highly recommend you the book English Vocabulary in Use. Here you can see the book for pre-intermediate and intermediate level. If you have more advanced students with more advanced level of English, there is also the book for advanced level. Pay attention to topics 70 and up to 94. Here you can see the list of the topics that are mentioned there. I guess they are really helpful. If you dedicate some time to these topics, to these categories, you will be more confident in your students' results. Your students will be more confident in what they have to choose in this or that gap if they lack knowledge of particular words. That is it. The final tips that I have for you and your students to reduce stress, let's say. Set up routines and rituals before starting tests to reduce anxiety. What do I mean? It doesn't mean that you need to create some specific dance that students need to do before completing each test in your lessons, but it can be some short action that can be really helpful in a way. What do I mean? For example, let's say the student stretches out before doing the test. So by repeating this action in an unknown environment, when they take a real test, they will feel something that is familiar, and that might reduce anxiety and stress. Or let's say they might do some exercises for their eyesight. Why not? Really helpful, and also might reduce anxiety because it's some kind of ritual or routine that they did regularly. So this is kind of bringing something familiar to an unknown environment. Then breathing techniques. Teach your students to a couple of breathing techniques. There are several of them. They might be useful. Or if your students lack concentration, if it's difficult for your students to concentrate on a particular task for a long time, or they get distracted really frequently, before starting the test, before starting the activity, ask them to look at one and the same point for 1 minute. So it really works because nowadays we are surrounded by different distractions, gadgets, different social media, different notifications from our phones and whatever. Give them some time to concentrate, teach them that they need to set the specific, let's say, environment to start working. Yeah, so it can be the ritual to keep focused on something for a short period of time before starting the test. Then teach students how to reflect, analyze the task with them, analyze the test with them, teach them to provide evidence, and so on. Then, not knowing all the words in the test is completely okay. They don't have to know all the words from the test. There are words of different levels. What students need to avoid is to try translating every single word because it's impossible. So teach them to develop their language intuition, guessing game. This is what should be done rather frequently in order to get used to it. And these were my tips and my recommendations. What should be the focus of your preparation with your students? I hope some of them were useful and you will try with your groups till we have some time. If you have your own rituals or if you have your own tips to share, you're welcome. Let's help each other and help our students to succeed in their future test. Thank you for your attention and hope we will see once again. Have a nice evening. Goodbye.